Harrison Ford is one of the most recognizable actors in film history, celebrated for his unforgettable portrayals of Han Solo in Star Wars and Indiana Jones in Steven Spielberg's adventure saga. To generations of moviegoers, Ford represents the rugged, witty, and adventurous leading man who defined late 20th century cinema. But behind his storied career lies one project he has admitted he despised more than any other. In this video, we'll explore in detail why he disliked the experience so intensely. The troubled production owner, he sought to create a dark, futuristic vision unlike anything audiences had ever seen before. The film's dystopian LA of 2019, with its neon-soaked streets and towering skyscrapers, became a landmark in science fiction design. However, the production itself was fraught with tension. Harrison Ford, fresh off the success of The Empire Strikes Back and Raiders of the Lost Ark, entered the project as one of the most bankable stars of the era. His character, Rick Deckard, was meant to anchor the narrative as a weary detective forced to hunt rogue androids known as replicants. But from the start, Ford struggled with the direction of the role. He later admitted that he felt Deckard had little to do, famously complaining that he was a detective who never actually did any detect out. Behind the scenes, clashes erupted not only between actor and director, but also between Scott and the film's American crew. Scott, coming from the British system, was often perceived as cold and distant, which created resentment among the Hollywood technicians. Ford, caught between loyalties, often found himself at odds with Scott's methods. Though both men were professionals, their communication styles clashed, and the atmosphere on set became increasingly strained. The constant battles over creative control also contributed to Ford's dissatisfaction. The producers, worried about Scott's artistic tendencies alienating mainstream audiences, interfered frequently. For Ford, who valued clarity in his character's motivations, this interference left him feeling even less invested in the film. The voiceover controversy. Perhaps the most infamous aspect of Blade Runner's troubled history is the narration added to the theatrical cut. Originally, Scott envisioned the film as a moody, atmospheric piece that relied on visuals rather than exposition. The studio disagreed, insisting audiences needed more clarity to follow the story. This led to the controversial decision to add a voiceover, delivered by Ford himself, explaining the film's events. Ford despised the idea from the beginning. In later interviews, he recalled how he fought against the narration, describing it as an unnatural addition to the movie. He stated, quote, "I contested it mightily at the time. It was not an organic part of the film. Nevertheless, under contract, he was compelled to record it." According to Ford, he had no opportunity to prepare or shape the lines. Instead, he was handed material he had never seen before and told to read it in the recording booth. The resulting performance has been criticized for decades. Many felt Ford intentionally delivered the lines in a flat, lifeless manner to sabotage the narrative. For Ford, the experience of recording the narration only added to his distaste for the project. Even when a director's cut was later released that removed the voiceover, Ford said he still disliked the movie, explaining, "I didn't like the movie one way or the other, with or without." Ford struggles with the character of Deckard.
This hard-boiled character, is that something that you have known from experience watching old movies? Any kinds of prototypes that you're aware of?
Yeah, I go home and I run all Garth's films and I study the way he walks and the way. No, I mean I have no. I mean I've only a sense memory of what he does, and I've seen him in films in which I really have admired him, and thousands of other people. I mean I have no sense of being imitative of, but it's in me as much as it's in you. Your ability to recognize what you see is just, it's in me, it's part of my experience. But I'm not, I hope I'm not imitating somebody else.
Beyond production woes, Ford never truly connected with the character of Rick Deckard. Unlike Han Solo or Indiana Jones, Deckard was subdued, introspective, and morally conflicted. He described Deckard as a detective without any detecting to do, a role that left him feeling adrift. Part of the difficulty stemmed from the script itself. Blade Runner's narrative, adapted loosely from Philip K. Dick's novel Do Androids Dream of Electric Sheep, was deliberately opaque. Questions about identity, humanity, and morality were central to the story, but they often took precedence over straightforward character development. He insisted that playing Deckard as a replicant diminished the emotional stakes, while Scott believed it added depth. Their conflicting visions created tensions that lingered through the shoot. These struggles with character interpretation left Ford dissatisfied with his own performance, While critics and fans have praised his stoic portrayal, he never saw it as one of his stronger efforts. To him, Deckard was a role defined by confusion, compromise, and a lack of fulfillment. His disconnect from the character was another reason why Blade Runner remained the film he hated making most. Reevaluating Blade Runner over time.
Ridley's is one of his strong suits, of course, is his visual sense and his eye, and I expected that he would spend a lot of energy on that.
Although Ford initially disliked Blade Runner, the film's reputation grew steadily after its release. While it underperformed at the box office in 1982, it became a cult classic, celebrated for its groundbreaking visuals and philosophical depth. Over time, multiple cuts of the film were released, including the director's cut and the final cut, both of which removed the controversial narration. As the film's legacy solidified, Ford was forced to confront his place in cinematic history. By the time Blade Runner 2049 was released in 2017, he spoke more positively about the original, calling it ahead of its time and acknowledging the meaningful questions it raised about humanity. This was a softer, more reflective view than the frustration he expressed in the early 80s. This dual perspective highlights the complexity of an actor's relationship with their work. Ford's legacy and Blade Runner's impact.
I felt that it was important for the audience to have a human representation on screen that they could identify with. So I resisted the idea of being a replicant, I suppose, as a replicant would.
Despite his distaste for Blade Runner, Ford's career continued to soar. He returned to Star Wars, headlined more Indiana Jones adventures, and took on roles in thrillers like The Fugitive and Air Force One. He became one of the most reliable box office draws of his generation, cementing his place as a Hollywood legend. Blade Runner, while a sore spot for him, only added to the depth of his filmography. The film itself, meanwhile, influenced countless filmmakers. Its depiction of a gritty, neon-lit future inspired everything from The Matrix to Ghost in the Shell. Its themes of identity and humanity resonated across decades of science fiction. Even if Ford disliked the movie, its influence on popular culture is undeniable. His conflicted performance as Deckard remains one of the most analyzed in his career, debated endlessly by fans and scholars alike. Blade Runner 2049 gave Ford the chance to revisit the role decades later. This time, under Denis Villeneuve's direction, he seemed more at ease. The sequel allowed him to bring a sense of closure to Deckard's journey, and his performance was widely praised. In interviews, he acknowledged a newfound respect for the original, though he never retracted his criticisms of the process. In the end, Blade Runner became part of the Harrison Ford legend precisely because of his dislike for it. The tension between actor and film mirrors the movie's own themes of identity, conflict, and ambiguity. For fans, knowing that Ford hated filming it only adds another layer to the story of a movie that has never stopped sparking conversation. Now it's time to hear from you. Does hearing this about Harrison Ford change your view of the movie? Let us know in the comments section below.